All right. Good evening. Welcome to our Facebook Live. It is Wednesday evening, August 12th, and I am joined this evening by my husband, Shane, along with some friends of ours. And we are going to talk about metabolic health. Um, if you have been dealing, or maybe currently are dealing with migraines, brain fog, restless leg syndrome, low energy, these are just the few things that I dealt with when I first came across the system. We are going to talk about a gut health system that has helped my husband and myself, along with my friends here tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce them, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So, and maybe those symptoms, I've got some things scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Maybe you're dealing with cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, or blood sugar issues. A whole host of metabolic health issues are affected when we are insulin resistant or suffer with or dealing with some metabolic syndrome. And so I'm going to have Travis get into that a little bit. He is uh, in the medical field and has way more credentials than I do. So we'll let him kind of get into that. So, like I said, this is my husband, Shane. I've got some friends with me. Leanne and her husband, Tom, are joining me tonight. I'm very excited about hearing Tom's story. He is somebody who also kind of suffered with low energy. He wasn't sleeping well at night, and he's just going to kind of talk about his story. I'll have Leanne share hers, and then Travis, I'm going to have you kind of maybe touch on some science of insulin resistance. But Leanne and Travis and I all went to school together. We kind of grew up and went to school in the same hometown, and then we all married outside of town, and life took us in different directions. And so here we are, kind of full circle, and just trying to get this information into the hands of so many people, because so many people are struggling with health issues. So tom Tom Albrecht, I'm so excited about hearing your story because I have heard through Leanne many many stories of different people, but she will just has talked about how much this system has helped you. So Tom, if you would, when you kind of get started, would you just let us know where you were with your health when you first started, considering the Feel Great system, and in time, what it's done for you?
Well, as you get older, your body changes. And I was always into trying to condition myself with weights just to try to stay firm. And I couldn't lose weight. I always wanted to trim 15, 20 pounds, and I could never do it. I tried different things. Um, I was going to the doctor every 6 months and getting blood draws, and they always tried to push the statins on you for high cholesterol because my cholesterol was a couple notches higher than it should be, that this number that they created that I needed to be at. And I just said, is there a way to, um, do I have options other than taking pills? And he said, yeah, diet and exercise. So I tried that and tried different ways to handle that and never seemed to work. And when the Leanne found the Feel Great system and she was on it, um, being that we live apart, I don't see her for a week. Every now and then it's 2 weeks or 9 days, which is too long. But anyway, every time when she started the protocol, I would look at her and see her instantly, like, what are you doing? What has happened to you? And it made her smile, made her feel good. And 2 weeks later, she'd show up. I'd see her up in northern Michigan, and I'm like, wow, what are you doing? And it just progressed as time went on, and before you know it, she was so proud of what she's done. But what it did, it made her attack me,
Oh,
where you
goodness.
need to do this. And that was probably from April of 2024 all the way up until December 1st of 2024. That's when I gave in. And that's when I started it, December 1st of 2024, right after Thanksgiving. And then when I started taking it, I mean, this is a simple product to take. And when I started taking it, I noticed within 7 to 10 days, feeling more strength, sleeping better, energy. Uh, I was always a breakfast eater, so I cut that right out, and I was able to advance myself into just doing 2 meals a day. And then by the first month, I really started to shed some pounds. And then by April of 2025, I was down, the most I went down to was like 22 pounds. And with the conditioning I do with weights, it all came together where the goal I was looking for is trying to lose weight. I got rid of some brain fog. It all worked for me. So thanks to my wife, and what she did by like making me, you need to take this, just try it, just taste it. And for others that I try to talk to, friends, family, associates, it's like you don't have to pay to go to a gym. You don't have to buy a gym bag. You don't have to buy gym clothes. It all helps if you go to a gym, but you don't have to. You don't have to walk 10 miles a day, or again, it all helps, but it's pretty simple. It's one of the most
Perfectly
simplest
said.
things I've ever taken. And the only thing I could say, if anybody is interested in taking this product, is you have to stay loyal to it. Take your Unimates twice a day, take your Balance. And one of the first exciting things that happened through my journey was probably in that April date when I lost the weight. I told Leanne, we have to go shopping. I need a couple new belts because my belts don't work anymore.
Yeah.
So that was the first part of the journey. So
Yep.
proud to
Well
be part of
said.
it.
Well
I
said.
love it. I love it.
So
And Travis, we're going to get your beautiful wife, Megan, on here one of these days too. I've had her on one of my lives in the past, and she has an incredible story. You want to talk about weight loss and inflammation, just that alone. I'm sure you probably witnessed, like Tom did with Leanne, you probably witnessed that physical change, just kind of watching her over time, just have those, changes happen right in front of your face. So I would love to get Megan on here with you one of these nights because she has an incredible story too. But Tom, thank you. I can relate to the brain fog. And I was always under the impression it came with age. And so just kind of disregarded it. The migraines, I kind of disregarded it as hereditary because my mom had them. So it's always nice to hear that, different people from different walks of life are going to have, and insulin resistance is going to affect people and bodies differently. And so Travis can kind of talk about that here shortly. But Tom, I appreciate you sharing your story. If there's anything else that you want to add, feel free to tune in, or pipe in. But Leanne, I didn't know you attacked your husband. So that's
I did
interesting.
not.
New information
Yeah.
tonight on my
He's
friend
getting
Leanne.
it for that. Yeah. Didn't
You're going to attack
attack.
me.
it was in a good way.
I suggested strongly. How's that? Suggested strongly.
So Leanne is someone who actually watched my Facebook for a year before she finally reached out, and she was kind of suffering with some health issues of her own. So I'll have Leanne share her story as well, and then I'm going to go ahead and introduce Travis. And I didn't ask Travis to come up with any kind of theme for tonight or talk for tonight. And so, Travis, I'm just going to have you share whatever you feel like sharing, wherever the conversation takes you. But Leanne was kind of in the same boat that I was. Like I said, we went to school together. Our lives kind of went in different directions. And when she finally reached out to me and said, I've been watching you for a year. People do that. It's okay to be skeptical. I wasn't, because I have a history of cancer. And so when I saw this and all the research that I did, I jumped right in. But most people are skeptical, and that's okay. You should be. But I think that so many people are being helped with their health, that be skeptical, but be open. And so Leanne was one of those ones that liked to sit back and watch for a while. But when she did, like Tom said, she had incredible changes happen to her. And so Leanne, if you would just kind of share your story, where you were and what's happened to you and where you're at now. I'd love it.
Okay, sorry about the sun coming in, but
That's all right.
I'm not shutting the blinds because it's
Yeah, we'll take it.
sunny.
Yeah.
So yes, I went through a great transformation, and yes, I lost some weight, and it was wonderful. But more than anything with me was the pain that I was in.
Mhm.
My hips hurt. They were so bad, and I was getting pain in my hands and in my wrists. In fact, I think I mentioned to Tom a couple of times, like, I think I need to go to the chiropractor and just my wrists need to be adjusted. And it wasn't, it was just inflammation.
Mhm.
And I didn't even know what that meant. I had no idea that the extra weight was inflammation and the hip pain was inflammation, and brain fog was that lifted by day 2. I felt different.
Mhm.
I could think clearer. I have a job where I have to use my head, but that's repetition, and I could do that just fine. I was never like, oh, where am I? But forgetting things was a big deal, and
Mhm.
it's gone. Restless leg is gone. IBS is so much better. And I had to go shopping, and that was it. It does make you feel good, and it was easy. It was
Yeah.
so easy. And Tom said the same thing. I think we'll all say that if you stick to it, the recommended dose is 2 Unimate a day and 1 balance. And so many people like, oh, I'm going to skip it, or I'm going to take it every other day. If your doctor gave you a little brown thing with some things inside it and told you to take it twice a day, would you take it, or would you just gamble? And that is the biggest thing for me is I'll share this with people and they'll, oh yeah, I took it last week and I went on vacation, so I didn't want to take it with me. This is Tom and I take it everywhere. We're going to a Tigers game this weekend, and we're already planning how to take our water with us because we won't drink the water down there. So we're taking a cooler with our water, our well water, to mix our Unimate and our balance. Now, we're probably going to drink other things while we're there. I'm quite sure of it. But we're not going to miss our system.
Quite sure of it.
We're not going to miss, and
Those
we're going to eat food.
$18 waters.
Hey,
But we're going to eat foods that we shouldn't. And do we care? No. We're protected. We're taking
Yeah.
our stuff, and that's the great thing about this is you can play with it. You can screw it up a little bit and it still works over and over and over again. It just works if you just condition yourself to take it. So
Yeah.
that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and I'd like to hear Shane's story because I've only heard it once. So
We'll get to Shane. What are you going to be at the Comerica on Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday.
So am I. So are we. We're going to be there Saturday.
No
We'll have
way.
to talk afterwards.
Yeah.
Afterwards. But I love that you mentioned being able, because this system, you can't, it's not falling off a wagon. It's not, you can take this product with you and be able to enjoy a drink at the game or a pretzel at the
Right.
game. We
I
went
mean,
down the river today
this is so
because my
easy.
son is here from North Dakota, and we went down the river and we took drinks with us on the river, and we had a couple of snacks. I don't typically do that throughout the day, but it was a special occasion, and you don't have to stop living life. I think my mindset has always been diets fail because
Mhm.
you deny foods. And so you're not denying your foods. You can have the foods. You'll still get results. It might take you a little bit longer.
Right.
Part of the consistency is, if you take your balance, but you're still going to eat at the ball game, you're still going to have an impact. But this helps to blunt the impact of your glucose spikes. It's going to help to soften the blow
Yep.
of what those foods are going to do to your body. So yeah, you're still going to pay for it, but it won't be as bad. So
Right.
I just wanted to kind of clarify that. We will get to Shane's story. Travis, if only you were in Michigan, you could join us at the game on Saturday, but you got
Oh
great
boy,
work
I'd
down
love
there where
to.
you're at. And, Travis, we all, like I said, we went to school together. We kind of grew up together. And after graduation, Travis decided to go and spend many of his young adult life in the Army, if I'm right, my right branch. And thank you for your service. He
Thank you.
retired, 20-year Army veteran, and has started a VA clinic that he was working at. And I want to say, did I hear that there's been a little change of plans there? You
I
can
did.
kind
I
of fill
stepped away from the VA.
stepped away from the VA. But Travis was a physical therapist and worked with our veterans and has the medical background that I don't have, that Leanne does not have. And so I asked Travis to join us tonight because he can share with us his knowledge from a medical standpoint on what we're dealing with. And when I say what we're dealing with, maybe what we've been talking about right now hasn't resonated with you, but maybe some of these struggles do. Maybe you're dealing with some weight issues. Like I said, I'm a 7-year cancer survivor. Cancer is linked to being insulin resistant. I won't sit here and say 100% of the time, but it is linked. It can be linked to insulin resistance. High blood pressure, dementia, and Alzheimer's are absolutely linked to being insulin resistant. Fatty liver. A third of our population has non alcoholic fatty liver disease, kids as young as 10 years old with fatty liver disease. This is non-alcoholic, you guys. Maybe you're constantly tired. Maybe you have to frequent urination. Any of these health issues that I just shared on that, and I can share that again later. If you're struggling with 2 or more of these, that's metabolic syndrome, and chances are you're well on your way to being insulin resistant, or we already are. If you looked at the CDC website, 8 out of every 10 pre-diabetic don't even know that they're pre-diabetic. I don't think that doctors, and this is just my opinion, I don't think that doctors are worried about blood sugar numbers until they're elevated enough, your A1C number is high enough that they can start labeling you now as a type 2 diabetic and start to prescribe medications. They can say, be careful, watch it, your blood sugar levels, we need to manage those, we need to control them a little bit. But once your A1C number is high enough, you're going to be diagnosed with type 2, and then they're going to start you on metformin is the number one prescribed meds for diabetics. And it's just kind of a snowball effect from there. Medications will help you to manage those symptoms for the rest of your life. But what if you didn't have to have that symptom to begin with? What if you could live the rest of your life not on those medications? The
Right.
information and education behind insulin resistance is severely lacking in today's communities. And so, one of the reasons why we do these lives is for that education information. So, Travis, would you just kind of share a little bit of your story also? I'd love to have you share your health journey with the viewers, and then just kind of share, what you feel led to share as far as insulin resistance from a science standpoint or medical standpoint. I sure would appreciate it.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me.
Of
And
course.
it's this. I have a humble story. I was a high school athlete and a college athlete. My wife Megan was a high school and college athlete, and then I went, like you said, into the Army. And looking back, I always expected to be in shape. I That was just my life. I was an athlete. I was a soldier. When I was in the Army, I worked with performance for our active duty service members. We looked at injury prevention. And so
Mm,
I was working to always be at the forefront of the science. And what ended up happening is real life occurred, and over the years, I gained weight. I found it easier to put on weight and harder to lose it. Um, and I just racked it up to Army old. You know, there's Marine old, there's Navy old. You know, it's that your service has a way of feeling like it catches up to you. So I just thought, well, I'm just old and crusty now. I'm getting ready to retire, and this is me. And it wasn't
Mhm.
until our friend John Cox called me and he was filling me in, that I started to put the pieces together for insulin resistance. The previous 20 years of my career, I was looking at inflammation, thinking that that was the root cause. And I think I was close. When you look at inflammation, and you mentioned it, when you look at inflammation and insulin resistance, they really weave together. Your
Yes.
body needs a certain level of inflammation in order to prompt healing. But when inflammation gets out of control, you have diseases like arthritis. Any of the itises tend to be an inflammatory type response. And so I was looking at inflammation. How do we control inflammation? Never thinking that maybe in 50, 60, 70% of my patients, I was missing that extra factor. And just to be true, uh, the military, the American military, has some of the best service members on the planet. We are number one for a reason, and I'll brag.
Mm.
But we are really a microcosm of the American society. When we talk about 90% of the American population has some form of insulin resistance, they have one of those or two of those conditions that you showed previously. The military, because we're forced to be active in a good way, maybe is a little bit lower, but some of those driving factors, like the amount of sleep you get or don't get, um, the number of duty hours you're working, your diet, the mental and physical stress that you place on your body really takes a toll. And so, to make a long story short, I'm just like everybody else. And over the years, I was gaining weight, and I wish you had a before picture because back in May of 2024, I was 240 pounds. I wish I was 6'5". That would have been a reasonable weight. God packed all 6'5" of me into 5'9", so it was a cruel joke. He's laughing, I'm not. Um, but but the truth was is I had a lot of information in my head, but like Tom mentioned, I was trying to exercise, but it wasn't working. I was trying to diet and it wasn't working. I've been intermittent fasting for the last 10 to 12 years, maybe longer, and it wasn't working. And it was because I didn't have the rest of the program. I kind of equate it to putting together a puzzle. I had a lot of the pieces, they were maybe a little bit jumbled up, and I just couldn't make sense of what that picture was meant to be. And it wasn't until I got exposed to this protocol that we'll talk about and to all of you as we were spreading the news on how this protocol and these products work, that the picture became clear. And Megan and I started this journey, like I said, May of 2024. She's probably down 75, maybe 80 pounds now. I don't think she would mind me mentioning that because we look back at pictures from 2 years ago and we feel like we're nearly unrecognizable. Like that thankfully is such an old mentality for us that whenever we see pictures, we look at each other and we say, I swear I'm never going back. We
Yeah.
have enough information. We have the products, the protocol, friends to keep us accountable that we feel like we are now in control of our health instead of our health being in control of us. And we're in a great place. So that is my story. I wish I was chiseled in stone and, I could be giving out all this wonderful wisdom, which I hope I can give the wisdom, but it's going to be because of trial and error. And I'm walking the walk with everybody. And I don't remember if it was Becky or Tom. I think it was Becky. You were mentioning the numbers, how physicians and our primary care teams will look at blood work and
Yeah.
they'll say, yeah, your blood glucose is good. Your A1C is good. But what those blood tests don't tell us is what is the trend? What is our insulin doing? So
Yes.
now I'm going to hopefully, in a good way, start to get a little nerdy with it. But insulin is a hormone that your body creates, that your body produces in the pancreas to help us use the glucose that is in our blood. When you eat food, carbohydrates mainly, but even protein, when you eat those foods, your body will convert that into blood glucose. And your body will then create insulin so your body can use that blood glucose. And by all purposes, that is a great system. You eat food, your body uses it for fuel. The problem is we have to break so many myths of the American diet. Back when I was entering PT school, we were learning, I believe wrongfully, that we should be eating multiple meals a day. We should be eating frequently, small meals, with the theory being back then that we wanted to keep our metabolism fueled up. And they would always use the example, well, if you have a bonfire, you're not going to feed it once and then let it burn to embers and then try to feed it again. You want to stoke it with wood throughout the night to keep the fire raging. Well, I wish our metabolism was that way, but it is not. Yeah, we don't need to fuel the fire. We don't need to fuel our metabolism. And why is that? Because our metabolism really burns on two different fuels. Carbohydrates become glucose, and for years, we thought that glucose was the main fuel. But that is another myth that we need to dispel. The second fuel is fat. When our body runs out of enough glucose, in a good way, when we fast, when we exercise, when we take those periods of time away from eating, our blood glucose and our blood insulin comes down. And that is exactly what we want to do. We want to live in that low glucose, low insulin environment, because our body then will learn how to burn fat as a fuel. And when it burns fat as a fuel, it creates ketones. And again, 20 years ago, we were nervous that when people would create ketones, their body would get acidic and their metabolism would get dysfunctional. Well, what the research shows us now is your brain, your heart, your other organs thrive on ketones. Where does a lot of the brain fog, when people talk about brain fog lifting, part of what I believe is happening is their body starts to burn body fat as fuel. They start to make some ketones. Their brain and heart actually work better, more efficiently. So learning to burn carbohydrates and fat is actually the healthy way our body was designed. The American diet has hijacked that. And now the human condition is we're only conditioned to burn carbohydrates. And what happens when our carbohydrates and our blood glucose gets low? We get headaches, we get fatigue, we get dizziness, we get hangry. People say they get jittery. Oh, I can't go that long without food.
Yeah.
If you tell yourself, I get hangry, I can't go more than a couple hours without a meal or a snack, you're insulin resistant.
Right.
I'm not gonna put a professional wager on it, but I would say that is, if not the precursor, you are absolutely some form of insulin resistant. That's the telltale marker. So that is, I think, why what we're talking about is so important, is because so many Americans are only able to burn carbohydrates when their body needs to burn both. Tom mentioned another thing, how, in Leanne as well, they talked about how the quick response to this protocol. Well, a couple things we know, two main things. When our body drops blood glucose and our body drops insulin, we start to burn body fat as fuel. Our body also begins to purge out a lot of that fluid that we've been holding. For people who are diabetic, insulin resistant, we sometimes get a puffiness to our face, in our neck, in our body. Well, that's fluid retention. And sometimes as we get our metabolism healthy, we start to purge off that extra fluid and our weight goes down quickly. And a lot of times people notice their blood pressure comes down more into those healthy ranges. Well, what are the main drugs that American medicine prescribes? The I think top 4, the top 10, blood pressure, well, statins for cholesterol, blood pressure, metformin for diabetes, prediabetes, and now the semaglutides and those other glutides that help our body create GLP-1. Those, I believe, now it's been a few months since I looked at the data, but those were and should be now roughly the top 4 medications. Well, when you go back to that diagram that you showed at the beginning, Becky, those 4 medications treat, I'm going to argue, almost every single condition. Statins for cholesterol, high blood pressure medications, metformin for diabetes, and then the semaglutides or those GLP-1 medications we're trying to treat all of those with synthetic drugs instead of the natural solution. And I'm by no way knocking on medications or American medicine. But if you have a choice between choosing the natural route or an artificial, my heart would tell me I want to take the natural route. If I were diagnosed with diabetes today, what would Travis do? It's going to be all the things that we are now going to talk about as far as the protocol and the products. If I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia, Megan and I as a family have already talked about that. And I told her, if I ever get diagnosed with those, these are the steps we need to take. Well, thankfully, we're taking those ahead of time so that we are going to age in a healthy manner. But we've had these discussions. We've talked about all of those things around that wheel. So the good news is there's a healthy set of solutions. Consistency to the program is the key. Tom mentioned that. It's not intensity. We don't need to go out and run marathons, join high intensity exercise. We need to be consistent with the healthy concepts, the healthy factors that we can control: sleep, diet, good healthy exercise, and stress control. If we can cover those 4 parts, your body is going to heal naturally.
Right.
In fact, I haven't seen anybody who's done the protocol and has done it consistently. I've not seen anybody 100% success rate. Now, I'm not saying everybody's going to respond the same, but my point is that all the people that I've seen using the product, 100% of those people who chose to do it correctly have had improvements in almost every measure of their health. And then they're working with their healthcare provider to make sure they're covering some of those other questions and factors that maybe they need to address personally. So the good news is the information is there. We have more health information at our fingertips today as Americans. We just have to now choose that path that we want to go down. Take control of our health, or let our health take control of us.
That's so true. That's a great statement that you ended that with, Travis. Thank you for all of that. I do have a question for you. If you could, just because you kind of touched on it a little bit, say people, will say, oh, I can't go more than a couple hours without eating something. One of the, if I should say, myths, because you touched on a few of them, is that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So I've been helping people with the system for 3.5 years. And I've had people tell me I will get the jitters if it's gone, if I go more than 2 hours without eating. They can't skip breakfast because of the same thing. Would you just kind of touch base a little bit and just kind of explain what's going on with our bodies when we get up in the morning? And I've had people say, my blood sugar numbers are already high first thing in the morning and I haven't even eaten yet. Would you just kind of because so many people, I don't know if they're not getting the education in their doctor's office. I don't know if they truly understand what's going on with their body. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but would you just kind of explain to the people what's going on with their body and why that happens first thing in the morning?
Well, let's just say, and that is a great question. And I get that a lot. Let's say you stop your last meal around 7 p.m. That, give or take, when we should be eating our dinner and being done with dinner. Earlier, the better. But let's say you end at 7. You sleep until 6 or 7 in the morning. So you're getting 11 or 12 hours of fasting time where your body is not eating. Um, and that is not wasted time. Sleeping is not wasted time. But over those 12 hours, your body is using that blood glucose as energy. And even overnight when you sleep, getting a great night's sleep is one of the most important things you can do because your body is still active when you're sleeping. It's
Yes.
using the blood glucose as an energy to drive some of those metabular type of activities, those things like clearing out waste in the brain and letting your body heal from exercise or the stress of the day, deep and regenerative sleep. So your body is active overnight. Well, when you wake up in the morning, your blood glucose should be a little lower. But what happens when you wake up to get ready to kickstart the day, another hormone, cortisol, tends to start to rise. And that is a stress hormone that gets us ready for activity. It is a sympathetic hormone. It gets our body ready for fight or flight. And during the day, hopefully you're not fighting and flying, but running. But it sets you up for activity. So it is not uncommon when we get up in the morning and our cortisol levels begin to rise that our blood sugar will rise with it. That is your body prepping itself for the day ahead. That is okay. That's natural. So I wouldn't be alarmed if people who are not um, not consistent yet with the program notice that pattern with their blood sugar. Now, what we want to do is go through the night fasting. And let's say you're used to getting up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. You're getting 11 or 12 hours of that fasting time from the end of dinner to when you normally have breakfast. That is still good time. That is good. Megan and I choose to exercise first thing in the morning in a fasted state. That is a choice we make, and we perform rather well. And I use my first round of Unamate in the morning as part of my hydration beverage that I use while I'm working out and after. But when people get the jitters in the morning or they feel like they can't eat, that is simply their body telling them that they're not ready. Their body isn't accustomed to burning body fat as an energy source. They're still latching on and needing the glucose. That's normal. 90% of Americans are in that situation. So what can they do to get to the answer? They should systematically, week by week, begin to intentionally push breakfast out 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever they're safely and comfortable with, week by week, maybe even every 2-week increments. But as their body acclimates to the new system of prolonging that fast, they're going to get more efficient in beginning to burn body fat. And a lot of those cravings will naturally go away.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell people, don't instantly try to do an 18-hour, 24-hour, 30-hour fast. You don't need to. This is a marathon. It's consistency, not the intensity. So start with what you have, intentionally build week after week until you're at 14, 16, 18 hours. And then they can start to look at some of those longer healthy fasts, 24, 48, 72 hours. But that could be literally months or a year down the road. We first got to get on that journey of understanding that we want to get our blood glucose and our blood insulin down. And skipping breakfast can be a very natural part for a lot of people. For me, it wasn't very hard at all. But if you asked me to skip dinner, if I were to eat breakfast and lunch but skip dinner, I probably would gnaw my arm off by the end of the day. So what my point is this program is flexible. Maybe you're a second or third shift worker. Let that meal work into itself. Let that fast timing organize itself around your natural daily rhythm. And as long as you're sticking to that concept, you're likely going to be very successful.
Very true. Very true. Thank you for shedding some light on that. Like I said, I get talked to a lot about that, and I answer it the same way. But I wanted you to be able to share your opinion with the viewers too, because so many people will think that they need to compensate with food, or they need to whatever. So I wanted to have some information from a medical standpoint. So thank you for that. I
Sure.
wanted
Well,
to
there
share
is,
this. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
if I can, while you're showing that slide, if I can also make one statement. When people break their fast, whether that's a 12-hour fast, a 16 or 18-hour fast, they need to prioritize protein. Conserving our body's muscle mass is very
Yes.
important. And so when we break that fast, don't run to the Pop Tart, don't run to the Captain Crunch, don't run to your soda, your full sugar, or even a diet soda, because that is going to spike your insulin. Lead with protein and fat. That is
Yes.
going to give your body the tools and the fuel it needs, and going to curb many of those cravings that you may otherwise get. So being smart with how you break the fast is very important. So thank you
Absolutely.
for letting me share that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for sharing that. And Tom mentioned this earlier. You don't have to have an extreme workout regimen. You don't have to, go to the gym and spend hours in the gym. You don't have to, but muscle utilizes a majority of the glucose load. And so when you can just, even if it's a quick 10-minute walk after a meal, a flight up and down the stairs a few times, just to utilize those muscles after a meal can burn off some of that glucose. And so I'm glad that you actually said that. I did show this slide. I'm going to go back to it for a second. This is a little bit of about what Travis was talking about earlier, when the standard American diet has us eating multiple times a day, and we wonder why, the brain fog and the chronic fatigue and the low energy and the restless leg and the inflammation. Why does that happen primarily in our 30s, 40s, and 50s? According to Dr. Bickman, he says it takes 10, 15 years for our bodies to become insulin resistant enough to the point where we start seeing these health issues. And then that just kind of snowballs into other health issues, the dementia, the diabetes, the high blood pressure. And so when we're on this pattern of eating every couple of hours, like Travis stated, we are on this path of getting to the point of insulin resistance. Are doctors concerned about your blood sugar levels or your A1C number in the pre-diabetic range? Maybe not as much as they should be, but they're maybe not as concerned because they're still, not horrible, but you're already, if your numbers are getting to the point of pre-diabetes range, you're already insulin resistant enough to the point where it's taking a toll on your body. And eating this way isn't helping anything. We eat multiple times a day. Every time you eat, like Travis said, you're spiking your blood sugar. Insulin has to be secreted to take that sugar out of your bloodstream. It gets stored in your muscle cells, your liver cells, your fat cells. And then when we burn and utilize that sugar, and then we get those jitters, we feel like we need to eat again. Stabilizing not only your blood sugar levels, but your insulin levels as well is key to getting your insulin resistance under control and even reversing a little bit. So I am going to get to the point here in just a moment where we're going to talk about the system. I can't go back to that slide. We're going to talk about the system that we've all been talking about tonight and what we've done, each of us, to be able to get our health back on track. But before I do that, and Leanne, I'm going to have you kind of help me with that a little bit. I'm finding my packets. I got my balance in front of me, but I'm going to find my other one. Before we get to this, I'm just going to have my husband Shane just kind of talk about his story a little bit. I know Leanne says she's only heard it once. But he's kind of dealing with some of the same stuff that Leanne was dealing with the inflammation, and her hip was bothering her. And, he's done different jobs over his years, but when he was a truck driver, uh, in a truck, countless hours a day, day after day after day, has really taken a toll on him. So Shane, if you just kind of want to share where you were before we found the system with your health and kind of what it's done for you today. And then, when he's done with that, Leanne, I'll have you kind of jump in and help me a little bit with maybe the fiber, and then I'll talk about the Unimate a little bit in closing.
Sure. Just quickly, my story is not a lot different than anybody else's. You grow up and played sports all through high school, was always in good shape. Sports injuries didn't seem to matter at that time. You just kept on playing. Went into the military for a while, and the Marine Corps mentality is suck it up. You got a job to do. You're going to be okay later on. So stayed in relatively decent health up through the 40s. But like Becky was saying, the truck driver's diet, I look back on it now when you're over the road trucking and you're eating the last 3 tornadoes that have been sitting in the truck stop for, since noon, and you're chasing that with Monster Energy drinks. And then after that, you got your bottle of Tums because you don't know why you have acid reflux or heartburn, because you're just ignorant of, you're uneducated.
Yeah.
But I remember what it started in the 40s, and then by the time I hit my 50s, it was almost like somebody took a sledgehammer to me and just started wailing on my body, because the right side of my body, the shoulder, actually both knees and my hip, just decided to mutiny on me and not want to work anymore. And I told this last time, but it really hit me when we eating a breakfast at Denny's restaurant, and we're walking out of Denny's restaurant. Next thing I know, my hip goes out and I just about fell on the floor in Denny's restaurant because of all the pain and everything else like that. So we go shopping, and I go to the find a cane. I end up coming back with a cane, I buy this cane so I can use it for the rest of the day. And my wife was just absolutely like, no way. I am not walking around with an old man and a cane already, But I mean, the pain was just so ridiculous. You'd sleep in a chair at night because of the heartburn, or we would go into the second bedroom and I'd sleep there because the hip pain and the knee pain would be so bad that you could not lay still, and went to the doctors to try to, she would at the time tell me, you need to get to the doctor, you need to go to the doctor and figure out what's wrong with you. So I went to the doctor, and they looked at me, and I told them what was going on, and they didn't do any blood work. They didn't do any tests at all on me. And his prescription was, we're gonna start you on arthritis medication and physical therapy, and then we'll go from there. You know, but we've never been big on medications other than just a little bit of ibuprofen or something like that on occasion. But so I decided not to do that, but just continued to live with the pain until this program came along, this protocol. And I swear, with what it was doing for her, was phenomenal. But I was thinking my body was almost too far gone for just something this simple to make a difference. But within 3 days of just doing the best I could with my eating, but being consistent with the Unamate and the fiber, I couldn't believe that you noticed a difference already. And everything that I had wrong with my body, for the most part, was attributed to the inflammation that I had. And once I got the inflammation out of my body, I still have a little bit of hip pain now because of just wrecking it for so many years. I may have to have something done with it. But I know I don't have to walk with a cane. I'm still in good enough shape to kind of play pickleball with the family. I just can't cut very hard to the right. But realistically, the simplicity of the protocol, like Tom was saying, is just it makes it so easy. And the flexibility that you do have. I'm one that I don't eat breakfast. I'll eat 11:30, and a lot of times they have my diet usually consists of, while I'm at work, is no breakfast. I'll drink my Unamate in the morning. 11:30 they have a everyday protein in Unicity also. Is a protein, all natural protein drink. So I will drink that for my lunch. And then I like to eat by 5:30 in the evening, so I'm always going to bed slightly hungry, because if you can do that, once you get used to it, which it wasn't easy, it took some effort, but now it's just the natural progression of how my body works now. You sleep better. It still hasn't cured my snoring, I'm afraid to say. So, but I mean, we're working on that also. But anyways, but I'm a lot better shape than I used to be, and a far cry from what I was. But it's simple and it's easy, and my gosh, the results you get from it are you guys know just as well as I do, are
Oh,
phenomenal.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so maybe you are watching and you want some more information. What is the system that they're talking about? What is this Unimate they're talking about? It's literally 2 drinks in the system. Unimate, which I'll cover in just a second, we take this twice a day. You sip on this when you're not eating food, right? Like Travis was saying, he doesn't eat till Shane till 11:30 in the morning. If you can push that breakfast out, drinking this in place of that breakfast foods first thing in the morning. And if you stop and think about it, what are a majority of our breakfast foods? All carbohydrates, toast, juice, oatmeal, Starbucks, instant oatmeal. What are we feeding our kids at 6:30 in the morning when we wake them up out of a dead sleep to get them off to school? And then we send them with granola bars and apples and all sorts of sandwiches for lunch in the afternoon. And all day long our foods are just carb, 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 carb. And so we sip on the Unimate when we're not eating, once in the morning, again in the afternoon, in replace of those snacks that you think that you might need in between to tide you over until dinner. And then just before dinner we take this fiber. So Leanne, would you just kind of briefly just touch on the benefits of the fiber? Why are we drinking this before dinner? What is it going to do for us? And does it have to be dinner? So we just kind of share your knowledge with the balance for me.
Yeah. So the balance it forms like a gel. Okay.
Yep.
And so you're going to drink it fast. I drink mine in a very small amount of water, maybe 4 to 6 ounces, cold water. But it'll turn into a gel. So when you do eat carbs or whatever you do eat, it will wrap your food so that it will slow digestion. Travis, tell me if I'm telling this wrong. So it will slow the digestion and coat all the food so that you are not so your glucose doesn't spike
Right.
through the roof. So it's going to slow that glucose and keep the insulin down. So I do mine at lunch because that's
Okay.
my heaviest meal of the day. When I'm with Tom, I do it at dinner because that's my heaviest meal of the day. But when I'm working up here, I just take it at lunchtime, and sometimes I take 2 a day. It depends on what I'm eating. If I'm going to eat something really carby, I'll do 2.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Like at the game on Saturday.
yes.
Or so on this chart that I have on the screen right here, down at the very bottom under the Cleveland Clinic heading, I've got it highlighted. It says such a product. And what they're talking about, this Cleveland Clinic study, what they're talking about is this fiber. This fiber's been around since 1990, 36 years. This fiber's been around. Your doctor can look it up in their medical reference. It's called the Physician's Desk Reference. They can look this up and see it's just plant-based, soluble and insoluble fibers. But that down there, it says such a product, if taken regularly, like, Travis and Leanne, all of us were saying consistently, could reduce cardiovascular risk. That's heart disease, stroke, heart attacks. Could reduce cardiovascular risk on a population basis. Anybody can drink this. And potentially decrease the need or even your dosage of lipid-lowering prescription drugs. Travis, what's lipid-lowering prescription drugs?
Those would be the statins that
Those
are
would
the
be your
number one
statins.
prescription category in America.
Absolutely. So this fiber, plant-based fiber that you're going to drink prior to your heaviest meal could potentially decrease the need for those statins. If not decrease the need, at least the dosage of those statins. That's not this company saying that. That's Cleveland Clinic, the number one heart hospital, saying that about our fiber. And then, like Leanne was saying, it lowers the impact on your blood sugar. So why we have the fiber prior to our carb heaviest meal is because it blunts the impact of the carbs on your blood sugar. So up to 40%. Thanks, Leanne. I appreciate you sharing that. And then the Unimate, we drink this twice a day. Like I said, when we're not eating, we're sipping on this instead. Travis talked earlier about one of the top number 4 meds or drugs out of the top 10. One of them being semaglutides. Semaglutides there are several different on the markets. A lot of people like these semaglutides because it helps them to not eat. It actually blocks the leptin signaling. It's not sending messages to your brain saying, "Uh-oh, you better eat. You're hangry when you're, when you need to eat." It blocks that signaling, and you don't think about food. It shuts off the food noise. This Unimate has been proven through a clinical study to do the exact same thing as those semaglutides. As a matter of fact, it was found that this has the same therapeutic effect. Not the Unimate specifically, but one of the plant compounds in here. It's called chlorogenic acid. And when there was a study done on chlorogenic acid, they found that it has the same therapeutic effect as metformin. So if you're somebody like Travis said, that's one of the top fours. Metformin is the top prescribed meds for diabetics. If you have a plant-based product that does the same thing as metformin, why isn't your doctor talking about a plant-based natural alternative versus these pharmaceutical drugs and medications that have horrible side effects? Your doctor can look up, it's actually a public website, pdr.net, and you can see what all the side effects, adverse reactions, contraindications, box warnings of any of the medications that you're on right now, and then look these products up because these are in there as well. And you'll see that there aren't any side effects. There aren't any adverse reactions or contraindications. And so when you're drinking this Unimate in a fasted state, you start drinking this first thing in the morning in place of those breakfast foods, you're actually creating more of that GLP-1 hormone. This is going to help regulate your blood sugar. It's going to help with the cortisol. It's going to help with your insulin. These are all hormones. And instead of having our hormones that aren't regulated, how about if we start getting these hormones regulated again? How about if we start focusing on PCOS, which is now being called PMOS? What if we're focusing on the hormones and being able to help guys with erectile dysfunction? What if we're getting people off of insulin and metformin and these statins that are doing horrible things to our body because they're pharmaceutical synthetic drugs? This is a plant-based product that is doing that very thing. We have a mission to help 1% of the population to start with. We want to branch out way more than that. But this all-natural system, and you've heard us all tell our stories tonight, can do that for you. The company is so sure that you will get measurable results within 90 days or you get your money back. So if you are watching this live because somebody sent you here to watch this and get this information, please get with them. Get with Tom and Leanne. They can help make sure that you get this at the lowest price. You've got that 90-day money back guarantee. If you know Travis or you're watching this on Travis's website, Facebook, or Travis, I don't know where all you're going to share this, Instagram or whatever, please reach out to Travis. He can help you. And we just want to people learn what insulin resistance is, how it's affecting your body, how you could possibly reverse that insulin resistance and get rid of the side effects that doctors are going to medicate you for. Tom, I know I had you share your story at the beginning and we haven't really been able to come back to you, but is there any last words that you wanted to say before we're, and I'll come around to everybody, but I want to start with Tom first because he's been quiet the longest.
Well, if anybody gets diagnosed with anything, give this a chance first.
Yeah.
Or talk to one of the representatives that know what Leanne knows, what Becky knows, or John, and just figure this out. Because I look at a pill that is being prescribed to humans as a chemical.
Mm.
And in a capsule. And I don't think we were made to have chemicals put in our bodies. It's kind of the way I think. And I stay away from all of it. This is the only thing I take. And I'm going to continue doing that. So, and I feel good about it. And I'm positive about it. And thank you, Leanne.
Yeah. Thank you, Leanne. Leanne, did you want to add anything at the end?
I really don't have anything, Becky. I see all my friends, not all of my friends, I see some of my friends taking the GLP-1s and scares me. Like, I have a really good friend taking it right now and the weight is falling off him, but so is his muscle.
Mm.
And you can see that. Like you can see it.
Mm.
And it scares me. It scares
Yeah.
me. You know, these aren't old people. These are, you know, people my age. And it just, give this a shot. Just give it a shot. Stick with it for 90 days and see how it goes.
I'm
So,
glad you mentioned that. I think it was Dr. Bickman at one of our conferences talk about the weight that people will lose on those GLP-1 meds or those semaglutides. 80% of it might be weight. And Travis, you can kind of correct the figures if I'm wrong. I think I remember them saying 80% of it might be the fat, but the other 20% is muscle. But the weight that you gain back, 100% of it is fat.
mhm.
Like it's very, very difficult for people to gain that muscle back. And not only that, but and you also have to stop and think about this, right? It was kind of like one of those light bulb moments. Think when I heard somebody say, don't forget, you guys, your heart is also a muscle.
It's a
So if you're
muscle.
talking about these semaglutides that is having an effect on your muscle, it might not be your bicep, it could be your heart. That could be the muscle that's being affected. So stop
Yeah.
and think about that for a second. Shane, was there anything that you wanted to add before we close out? And I'm going to have Dr. Travis close us
Yeah.
out.
Not really. Just reclaiming your health doesn't have to be complicated. This system makes it so simple. And you don't have to be perfect with it either. You can screw up a little bit and still have results. So
Absolutely.
that's it.
All right. Travis, I appreciate your time that you spent with us tonight and your insight and your knowledge and the wisdom that you bring to the table every single time I have you on one of my lives. I appreciate you so much. Thank you again for your service, all the time that you dedicated. We know as a service family as well, we have one that's currently serving. What a sacrifice. So I just want to make sure that you know how appreciative we are for your service. But with your knowledge, would you just, if there's anything that kind of comes to mind that we might have touched on that you wanted to kind of clear up a little bit, please feel free to close us out.
My final two thoughts, and I will not take a lot of time. One is, this is so easy, but it also comes with a community. So yes, take that
Yeah.
first step. We're all from the same hometown, but we haven't had a chance to talk to each other in
Right.
years, decades. But the world is small, and that is what's great about this protocol is we are now part of the same family that's trying to speak the same message and to help
Yeah.
each other get healthy. So take that leap, come join the family. You'll never regret a single moment of this journey getting healthy. And then the last thing, and it's going to be the last thing that I mentioned, you can go into your health portal. If your doctor does any kind of standard labs, if he does the lipid panel, if he or she, if your provider does a lipid panel, find your triglyceride number, divide it by your high density lipoproteins, the HDL, healthy cholesterol. So triglycerides divided by HDL. And if it's over 1.5, if it's close to 2 or higher, you're insulin resistant. That is probably one of the easiest markers for everyday people to be able to check. Triglycerides divided by HDL. So I encourage everybody listening, get into your portal, find your lipid panel from your healthcare provider, triglycerides divided by HDL. And then if it's 2 or higher, 1.5 or higher, you need to really be thinking about that lifestyle change.
You're so right. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Thank you, Travis. Something else too, just on to piggyback on the back of that. I was one that never really did doctors until my cancer. It had been years since I went to my doctor. So if you're somebody that's like me, you just don't go to I hadn't been diagnosed. I wasn't being treated for anything. I didn't have a reason to go. I was healthy, right? Um, Other things that you can kind of look out for: skin tags happens to be one of the biggest outward signs of of insulin resistance that a body has. Visceral fat, that fat around the middle, and what's another one? Some darkening of the skin. If you're starting to get the coloring, it's in the folds of skin, so it can happen on your knuckles, or around your neck, and your armpits, and your groin area. Watch for these signs, and then if you have these skin tags, the visceral fat, struggling to lose weight, that's an insulin problem. Please reach out to one of us. We're not doctors. We can't diagnose anything, or go see your medical professional. But this is something that it should be kind of a light bulb moment, thinking maybe I should look into this, because chances are you're insulin resistant, and you could stop that in its tracks right now. before it gets too late. So you guys, Tom, thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate you sharing your story. Leanne, as always, it's a joy to have you here on my live with me. And Travis, again, always a pleasure to have you because you bring so much to the
Yes.
table and you talk about things at a level that it's difficult for people to not be able to follow. So I appreciate the fact that you are able to come on here and share your wisdom with us. So thank you so much. Shane, thanks for being here with us tonight. I appreciate you telling your story. And if you guys have questions, please reach out to any one of us. We'd appreciate it. And we hope that you have a great night.
Thanks, Becky.
You're welcome.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Guys. Hoorah.
Hoorah.
Cool.